Welcome to the Only Male Cruz show, the We On Your Head podcast. Discussing topics that make you say, how and where can we improve as a society? From a Black American's perspective. Copyright disclaimer regarding fair use is in full effect. The views and opinions expressed in this show, you guessed it, they're all mine. Catch this live, be ready to speak. This is a call-in show. Be sure to hit the like button, share, subscribe, replay gang, leave a comment. You know I want to hear from you. Let's go to work. All right. Welcome to the Only Male Cruz show, the We On Your Head podcast. Just checking the traps, y'all. Yeah. Okay, so apparently we've got some voting right changes that have happened, and it's really just not looking good for us. How about that? So, I reached out to somebody, said, hey, could you kind of have a conversation about, Section 2 and Section 5, just so we can get some level of understanding as it relates to, the Voting Rights Act. Because I'm going to be honest, I don't know. I don't know a lot of information about it. I'm not well informed on it. So I did some quick research, and these laws, it's just a lot. So instead of me trying to explain it, let me run this quick article about the Voting Rights Act. It's coming straight off of NPR. And let's see here. It's coming off of NPR, and let's hear what they're talking about. They really give a good overview about the fact that an appeals court has struck down a key path for enforcing the Voting Rights Act, okay? And it's just like, it's so important, and things are changing, and again, okay? All right, so there you have it. No, thank you, NPR. Thank you, NPR. Shout out to NPR for providing that great overview. Okay, so Neil Gorsuch. I think people feel multiple ways about him and who he is as a justice. I want to say that, I know so much. I don't. But I know there's some key things that he's had his hand in, and, he's been criticized about. But I want to stick with this Voting Rights Act. So as we heard in the NPR piece there, that the way this has changed or been modified unless it's appealed or changed, individuals can no longer grab a lawyer and go to court and say, hey, look, our voting rights are being stepped on, trampled on, denied us. That can't happen anymore. Now it's a matter of, whoever's up there in D.C., if they choose to make this important or not, if they choose to address this issue or not. And that's very problematic. And the one question that the lady asked from NPR is, well, how do we make sure that, this discrimination, this doesn't continue with discrimination? And essentially, that's the point. Discrimination is the point. Preventing people of color, quote unquote, that's the goal. And to be honest with you, the only people of color that have been unable to fully assimilate into this country are Black Americans. And so these rulings, this ruling and ones like that, are going to continue to impact our ability. And so I think, what is the title of the show? Voting Rights Act modified big time. Now what? I mean, they're no longer acting, y'all. They're no longer acting. They're taking our voted politicians are just having their way. They've got their own agenda and they are fully implementing it. So let me move over here to Twitter. and run this quick clip. It's a snippet from the Legal Defense Fund off of Twitter. Let me see if I can do a quick screen share on here. Hold on, y'all. Because we are on YouTube. Please hit the like button, share, subscribe. If you haven't already, Replay Gang, leave a comment. You know I want to hear from you. And also, if you do leave a comment, let me know what your knowledge is about this voting rights, and do you feel like this is something we can survive? Is this just a hiccup? I don't think so. I don't think this is a hiccup. This is just another move in the game um, to keep us, to hinder us. So let me move over here to this. I'm just going to run this. Should be able to hear it without any problem. Hold on.
We can't allow our voting rights to depend on the political whims or machinations of a particular administration. Individual citizens deserve the right to vindicate the right to vote, which is so fundamental to our democracy.
Thinking about the movements on the right, both in and outside of the legal system, that have sort of brought us to this place today, it's hard not to, I think, ascribe the worst motives to this assault on the Voting Rights Act. I mean, the Voting Rights Act is designed to remove racial discrimination from the voting system. If you are trying to get rid of the Voting Rights Act, you are trying to get rid of protections against racial discrimination in voting. And it's very hard to get away from that simple, fundamental truth of it. But when it comes to this particular part of the way the Voting Rights Act works, Section 2, which, as you say, allows groups like the Legal Defense Fund, allows groups, individual groups, allows other voting rights groups to bring these cases to test whether or not voting provisions are racially discriminatory. Is there some beef that the right has with that in particular? Is there some case that they feel like is particularly wrong, or there's something that they think has been egregiously mishandled in the way that Section 2 has been operative in states across the country as for all the decades that this has been in place?
You know, what's fascinating, Rachel, is that we've brought suits against Democrats and Republicans. We are a nonpartisan organization. We enforce Section 2 and all other provisions of the Voting Rights Act on behalf of voters to ensure that no matter who the actor is, no matter what party they might be affiliated with, that they don't trample on that fundamental right. So really, there's no reason to cast this in partisan terms. There's no reason for any party to feel that the Voting Rights Act is not a fair exercise of congressional authority to ensure that the 14th and 15th Amendments of our Constitution are honored when we talk about this critical right that undergirds our entire democracy. But of course, if you are prone to manipulating rules, manipulating districting lines, manipulating elections in every possible way to win against a majority of the people in this country, then yes, you might have a beef with the Voting Rights Act, but that is no way to run a democracy. That is no way to ensure that all voices are equally heard.
Janae Nelson, president of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, joining us as we're absorbing this move from the Eighth Circuit Federal Court of Appeals. It will presumably, it may be reheard en banc by all the judges in that circuit. It will certainly find its way to the United States Supreme Court. Janae, we'd love to talk to you again as this continues to move. Thanks for being with us this evening.
Thank you, Rachel.
Okay, so the people in the YouTube street said that they couldn't hear that first part, so my apologies. I may very well have to run that back a little bit. But shout out to the people in the Twitter space. Can y'all put some type of emoji up if you can hear me and if you were able to hear that entire recording? Sean, DL, were y'all able to hear that clear or not? Okay. All right. So essentially, what we have going on is, and what I wasn't completely clear on coming out the gate was the fact that this is right on DL, right on, that this is at least is going to go to the Supreme Court for reevaluation. That's extremely important. Um, so in the conversation, they talked about Section 2 and Section 5. Shout out Sean B. Manifesting. They talked about Section 2 and Section 5. And, so I wanted to get more information. Section 5 seemed to be a little bit complicated for me. So I really wish I had some voting rights scholars going on up in here to help with the conversation. But I think what we're going to do is really just start with voting rights, the Voting Rights Act explained. So apparently, and I'm reading off of this article from, I think it's called the BremenCenter.org, and I'll put the link in the chat. The Voting Rights Act explained the landmark 1965 law is one of the most successful civil rights measures in history, but the Supreme Court has eviscerated it. And one thing that I've heard a lot is that in this most recent information is a result of what happened. I think it's in Alabama, where the court ruled that they had to redo their maps, because the court found that, and please don't try to have me be specific, y'all. This is not a topic that I know off the back of my hand. But the court, I don't know if it was the state Supreme Court, I think it's in Alabama, said, hey, you guys are going to have to redo this map, because the way you got it right now, you are disenfranchising Black Americans. And the people in Alabama said, we ain't going to do a damn thing. We ain't changing shiznit. Okay? And they haven't. And then we have this particular ruling. So the landmark 1965 law is one of the most successful civil rights measures in history, but the Supreme Court has eviscerated it. This article is telling me, okay, so what is the Voting Rights Act of 1965? I'm going to be honest, y'all. I don't know all this stuff. I did not pay attention in my government class when I was in high school. I got kicked out of a whole lot of classes, okay? I was smarter than I understood I was, okay? So anyway, so I didn't do well in the government class. But the Voting Rights Act of 1965 is regarded as the legislative crown jewel of the civil rights era. The Voting Rights Act was enacted as a comprehensive tool meant to undo the political hold of Jim Crow policies in the South and related discriminatory structures nationwide. Congress adopted the law to ensure that states follow the 15th Amendment's guarantee that the right to vote not be denied because of race. The law fundamentally opened political opportunities for Black and Brown communities to participate in all aspects of the political system on an equal basis. And look, in 1965, it wasn't Black and brown. It wasn't Black and brown. Jim Crow wasn't designed to hold down and hold back and disenfranchise nobody brown. Okay? That's not what Jim Crow was designed for. And I hate the way this, they write this history. What do they call it? I can't even think of the word, but I hate the way they do this history to now you want to pull the brown people in there. That has nothing to do with them. This Jim Crow shit was just straight to hold down and disenfranchise a Black American. That's what it was. Okay. So Section 5. Now this is interesting because this only applied to like certain states. And I'm trying to figure out why. Like when they make these laws and they say, oh, well, we're gonna throw it over here and let them do it, and they ain't gotta do it, but y'all gotta do it. Like, why isn't it a blanket coverage? Okay, so Section 5 came out in pieces. So Section 5 of the law requires jurisdictions with a history of discrimination to obtain approval from the Department of Justice or a court before changing voting rules, a process known as pre-clearance. Section 2 of the law allows people to sue either on their own behalf or with the assistance of the Justice Department. to undo existing laws and procedures that would deny equal political opportunity to voters to elect their candidates of choice. However, these protections have been eroded by recent Supreme Court decisions. So here's the thing. If Section 2, okay, already in place, if Section 2 was created or substantiates or supports the fact that people can sue either on their own behalf or with the assistance of the Justice Department to undo existing laws and procedures that would deny equal political opportunity to voters to elect their candidates of choice. Why is the government, why did they just come up here now and change the damn rules? So how come you're just changing a rule because it works for you? But that's not how, this is not, it wasn't designed to be this way coming out the gate. Shout out to the people in the Twitter space. Definitely shout out to Black America State Migration, because, brother, I read this and I said, I got questions. And I'm so glad you're here because, the thing is that with this voting rights, how is this going to impact a Black majority state? Because these changes are now impacting how people can sue. If this is not struck down on appeal, this means that we're beholden to the Justice Department moving forward, okay, to make sure that we have our rights. How familiar are you with this, Black? And welcome. Thank you for coming. And I'm sure you're at work, Black. If you can unmute your mic, that would be great. Yeah. Okay. So Black, listen, we want to hear from Black. Let me shout out to people in the YouTube channel. Shout out to Baby Shay. Y'all do like Baby Shay say, do like she say. Shout out to Shrink and Sharon. Appreciate you pulling up. And shout out to the people in the bushes. Okay. So back to, and I'm just going to presume, oh man, here's my guy, Sean B. Manifested. Oh, thank you, Sean, for pulling up too, baby. Appreciate you. DL, you're welcome to grab a mic if you like, if you're so inclined. Hi, Sean. How you doing?
Hey, man, Cruz, just real quick, I was kind of half listening.
Sure.
In your own words, can you give me the gist of what's going on?
Yeah.
It seems like it's crucial.
It is. It's critical. So they've taken the Voting Rights Act and they've cut some more things in it. Okay. So now, if somebody has an issue like this, and Black has brought this up 2 or 3 times. I think it was the state of Alabama that brought a case to either their state Supreme Court about the fact that the gerrymandering had cut out it disenfranchised Black voters. And so here we have a judge in Alabama, I think it was the state, in Alabama that said, hey, recognize what the hell was going on. They said, look, you guys go back to the drawing board, fix this voters map, fix fix it so that Black people can be, vote fairly. Because the way you guys have the map now, you cut Black people out. Well, the state of Alabama said, we ain't doing a damn thing. It's make me. And maybe they knew already that this ruling was going to come down, which now says that if people have an issue with the way the voting is, set up in their city and their state, they personally cannot bring a suit. They now have to go through the Justice Department to get a restoration or justice, voting justice. And the point is that at this point, this is what they were saying in one of the articles that I've just played, was that it really now it's going to be contingent upon who's running the Justice Department. Because when Eric Holder was running the Justice Department, even though his skin was like ours, Eric Holder didn't do a damn thing for us, as did not Barack Obama. So I don't know if that helps explain that, Sean. Does it? Does that kind of provide some clarity?
Yeah, a little bit like they're tampering or alter the Voting Rights Act to disenfranchise more of our rights. Embarrassingly enough, I'm not as educated on this thing as I should be.
It's okay.
What I will say is, it's become very clear us getting involved in, like majority movement, things of that nature, and understanding how important it is for us to have one man, one vote, and how much that really, really, really matters.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, how much it really matters that we concentrate that to make it count. You know what I mean?
Right.
So here's my thing. I've become very covetous of that. I recognize it's a way for us to exercise power. When I see and hear things like this, it makes me understand that cannot stand,
Mm-hmm.
and we need to. Nothing's off the table. We need to exercise any means we can to make sure people like that, because it's a group of them. It's like we always hear about this. Like I would like specifics. I want to know names. I want to know people who's doing this
Right.
to counteract that or do what has to be done to either reverse it or exact a penalty for that type of behavior. Because you are denying my people rights that are well earned, that my ancestors fought and died for, and I take that very personal.
Yes.
I think it's a deadly serious thing that's happening, and I know it's enough of our people don't understand the gravity of what's going on. So I guess it's up to the small elect few to, take care of this and whatever means we have to execute. And, I don't have to say explicitly. I'm sure you guys can pick up. Nothing's off the table. We need to have an organization or a group of individuals that are more proactive about these type of things before it even gets to. I don't know how the process works, but I would like it to get to a point where we hear about this stuff, the murmurs of it, and we nip it in the butt right then and there. We have to get to that point and take our power that seriously. These people, these are individuals that are doing this. They talk amongst themselves. We need to know who they are. Anybody that can affect anything we got going on, we got to know what they got going on.
Absolutely.
And we got to get to that point where we take it serious enough where we gather intelligence and information so we can nip stuff like this in the butt before it even gets going.
Exactly. Exactly. No, thank you so much, Sean. You're absolutely right. And listen, here's what I'm going to do, because although I'm not recording this space on Twitter, y'all know I'm in the YouTube streets. Oh, Muffet, thank you for pulling up, sir. I need some of your intellect. Glad you're here. Black, are you out of the matrix yet?
Yeah, I'm traveling state, so it's probably going to be glitchy. But that Alabama one you talked about, so it's a second black majority district that they are saying that should be created, and it went through the federal courts. Federal court said yes, should create this second district, and Alabama's essentially saying we're not going to do it. So it's still kind of mulling in the courts, I guess. Like they're not going to send troops down there. States have authority. That new thing that oh my God, that is so sad because it affects, I read the story, I think it affects like 5 or 6 states, that decision. But even that still is kind of going to be working itself through the courts as well. And it's going to be a matter of SCOTUS once they hear it. They are going to make decisions that are not retroactive to pre-Reconstruction type, law.
Right. Totally. And so my biggest question is, if we were right now enjoying a black majority state and we get a ruling like this, how would that impact a black majority state? The state would still have to go through the Justice Department in order to make sure that, that's what I'm wondering. Like, how would that work? I guess if we're a black majority state, we wouldn't really have that issue. I don't know. It just sounds like we are not they're doing everything. Well, here's what I'm getting. We better hurry up and get some black majority states going on, because that's the only place where this wouldn't happen, because we wouldn't be turning on ourselves and say, no, we need to disenfranchise ourselves. So we need to hurry up and do that, because if we don't, that means as long as, Mr. Bob and Mr. John have who they want up there in the Justice Department, they're going to get what they want, just like they have it now. And to Sean's point, nobody knew nothing about it till the shit dropped out. And it's a headline. It's a headline. So what I want to do, because people in the YouTube streets did say, Baby Shay said it, she initially didn't hear this piece that I played directly off of Twitter. So I'm going to run it back a little bit, because the lady that is being interviewed on this MSNBC with Rachel Maddow, she uses the term that Section 2 is a very muscular piece of legislation that has hooked us up. It's benefited us, and now they in there chopping it up, and not in a good way. So let me run it back. YouTube streets, y'all let me know if y'all have any difficulty hearing it. Same with y'all Twitter. Let's check it out.
Joining us now is Janae Nelson. She's president of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Ms. Nelson, thanks very much for joining us, especially on short notice with this surprise ruling tonight.
Happy to be here, Rachel.
So let me just ask you, I feel like for the last 10 years, since the Supreme Court ruling in 2013 that really took a lot of the power of the Voting Rights Act away, we have been talking about this landmark piece of legislation, this sort of moral crucible piece of American legislation, as having been severely weakened. What is important about tonight's ruling as compared to the other attacks on the Voting Rights Act that we've seen from this conservative court?
Well, tonight's ruling upends almost 60 years of precedent in which, as you noted, individuals and civil rights groups have enforced Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act to make sure that our country has a democracy that is free from racial discrimination. It's something that we've never fully achieved, but the Voting Rights Act and Section 2 in particular has done such muscular work to advance us toward this goal. And this is the first decision to say unequivocally that individuals and civil rights groups like the Legal Defense Fund cannot bring lawsuits under this key provision. And it's interesting that you bring up Shelby County versus Holder, which, as you noted, 10 years ago gutted what was the most transformative provision of the Voting Rights Act, Section 5. And in that decision, Chief Justice Roberts, in striking down that key part of the Voting Rights Act, pointed to Section 2 and said, you can still use Section 2 to vindicate your rights. There's still a vehicle to address racial discrimination in our elections. And yet, a panel of the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals in this country said no. Individual voters, citizens, civil rights groups, good government groups who have brought litigation under Section 2 for decades now can no longer do that. And the only possible vehicle is through the Department of Justice and the U.S. Attorney General. That is woefully inadequate for so many reasons. Not only does DOJ have limited resources and limited time and limited bandwidth, as we know, not every Department of Justice is the same. And in the last administration, we saw voting rights suits come to a screeching halt. In fact, the Legal Defense Fund had to step in and effectively be a Department of Justice during that period of that administration. We can't allow our voting rights to depend on the political whims or machinations of a particular administration. Individual citizens deserve the right to vindicate the right to vote, which is so fundamental to our democracy.
Thinking about the movements on the right, both in and outside of the legal system, that have sort of brought us to this place today, it's hard not to, I think, ascribe the worst motives to this assault on the Voting Rights Act. I mean, the Voting Rights Act is designed to remove racial discrimination from the voting system. If you are trying to get rid of the Voting Rights Act, you are trying to get rid of protections against racial discrimination in voting. And it's very hard to get away from that simple, fundamental truth of it. But when it comes to this particular part of the way the Voting Rights Act works, Section 2, which, as you say, allows groups like the Legal Defense Fund, allows groups, individual groups, allows other voting rights groups to bring these cases to test whether or not voting provisions are racially discriminatory. Is there some beef that the right has with that in particular? Is there some case that they feel like is particularly wrong, or there's something that they think has been egregiously mishandled in the way that Section 2 has been operative in states across the country as for all the decades that this has been in place?
You know, what's fascinating, Rachel, is that we've brought suits against Democrats and Republicans. We are a nonpartisan organization. We enforce Section 2 and all other provisions of the Voting Rights Act on behalf of voters to ensure that no matter who the actor is, no matter what party they might be affiliated with, that they don't trample on that fundamental right. So really, there's no reason to cast this in partisan terms. There's no reason for any party to feel that the Voting Rights Act is not a fair exercise of congressional authority to ensure that the 14th and 15th Amendments of our Constitution are honored when we talk about this critical right that undergirds our entire democracy. But of course, if you are prone to manipulating rules, manipulating districting lines, manipulating elections in every possible way to win against a majority of the people in this country, then yes, you might have a beef with the Voting Rights Act, but that is no way to run a democracy. That is no way to ensure that all voices are equally heard.
Janae Nelson, president of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, joining us as we're absorbing this move from the Eighth Circuit Federal Court of Appeals. It will presumably, it may be reheard en banc by all the judges in that circuit. It will certainly find its way to the United States Supreme Court. Janae, we'd love to talk to you again as this continues to move. Thanks for being with us this evening.
Thank you, Rachel.
Okay, so I mean, there it is. That's the problem. So Sean B. Manifesting again, before we played this clip, made a very good point. Shout out to the people in the Twitter space. Sean made a very good point. We need to know about this ahead of time, not after the damage is done. And Section 2, as the lady, that's that muscular piece that has given us an opportunity as citizens to fight for our right. Okay, what was that? The Beastie Boys had that song out. But that's what's given us our ability to fight. Now, unless the appeals court, the Supreme Court, rolls this thing back, we can't even get our local congressman or we can't get nobody to pull up and file a suit for us or work on our behalf to make sure that our voting rights are not that we're not disenfranchised via our voting rights. Yes, Sean, manifesting. Go ahead. What's up?
Yeah, and just to be clear, I'm not advocating, violence against anybody, to be specific. I'm just saying we should know who these players are when they're elected into office and those that are non-elected. We should know who these people are that can control our lives like this. How are we this comfortable being this unaware of who affects our lives? That's got to stop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it keeps coming back to back to back. And we just, that's why I call it the sunken place. Here goes the guy. Here's another one. Oh Lord. Shout out to Muffet. Muffet, you're on the stage. I'm gonna go ahead and let you speak your piece, sir. Shout out to JV. Hi, JV, and everybody else in the Twitter space. So glad that y'all pulled up. What's tea, Muffet? What's your? Oh my God, Muffet.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone.
Hey.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting. The woman who was on, I think that was MSNBC.
Mm-hmm.
She brought up the point how in one court case, John Roberts struck down a decision and used Section 2 as an excuse where he stated that, well, we don't need this aspect of the Civil Rights Voting Act because litigants will always have Section 2 to protect them if they ever feel that they've been injured in any way. And now you have this court striking down Section 2. Right. And it kind of makes the point that a lot of people make. Like when we take an action, they'll always change the rules. Yeah. So it just reminds us that, like, no matter what, our struggle will always be in this country will always be continuous, and we'll have to stay vigilant. And we'll have to do everything we can to protect ourselves, and we'll have to sometimes change the rules to benefit ourselves when we can, however we can.
Right.
I was thinking, like, if at any point we gain control of a city, we win elections.
Yeah.
We have to, I don't want to say play dirty, but like if there's town ordinances that limit building or construction,
Mm-hmm.
how do we get more people into the town? We change the ordinances where we use it to get as many people into the town as possible. Even if we have to make lots into tent cities, we need our people in certain towns to increase our numbers in the state. We have to think outside the box. When we're dealing with this, the way the system works against us, we're always going to have to try to stay a step ahead.
Right.
Right.
Just to bring a little bit of pop culture into this conversation, everybody knows what's happening with Diddy and Cassie and all that. And so, before Diddy settled, they were saying, protect Cassie at all costs. So now, hashtag protect Muffet at all costs, protect Black majority state migration at all costs, because that tent city is what's up. I mean, and I'm wondering, do we need to go on and start packing now? I want to read this part over, and I see your hand up, Sean. I'm going to get you back up in here. I want to read this part over because, again, I'm not well versed on this, okay? But they kept talking about Section 2 and Section 5, and both of these pieces are very meaty. And to use the lady's term that was on the interview with Rachel Maddow, very muscular, okay, in protecting us. Section 5 of the law requires jurisdictions with a history of discrimination to obtain approval from the Department of Justice or a court, which they made this ruling, y'all, and they didn't ask nobody. They've just gone ahead and decided this is how it's going down moving forward. That people can't bring. Y'all didn't get no approval. Y'all just made the damn law. You just made the law. It didn't even go in front of a court for approval. Problematic. To use Muffet's term, they changed the rules. So that requires approval from the Department of Justice or a court before changing voting rules, a process known as pre-clearance. Section 2 of the law allows people to sue either on their own behalf or with the assistance of the Justice Department to undo existing laws and procedures that would deny equal political opportunity to voters to elect their candidates of choice. However, these protections have been eroded by recent Supreme Court decisions. So we already know that the Supreme Court has made some decisions that haven't necessarily been favorable to voting rights for us in particular. Okay, and then now this new thing that's coming up is more than likely going to go back to the Supreme Court. And so this article is already stating that the Supreme Court's already not been, looking out for us. Okay, Sean, you had your hand up. You got it. What's up, sweetheart?
Yeah, I was going to go back to one of the points I made that we got to start naming names.
Mm-hmm.
These people, the greatest weapon they have against. First of all, the pen is the greatest weapon they have against us. One of the greatest weapons. They take away our rights with a stroke of a pen. And these are people. These are groups. We got to get names. We got to, like I said, I'm not ever going to advocate violence, especially not on the open platform. But
sure,
we got to make sure that life becomes a series of unfortunate events as far as, in the public, make them look bad in the media. Make sure they can't go around any of our neighborhoods and feel comfortable. Make sure don't even want them to come out the house because they know they're gonna get an earful. They're gonna get ran up on. And again, I'm not advocating violence.
Absolutely
but
not.
We gotta know who thought this was a good idea to
Mm-hmm.
violate our rights like that. When they step out their doors, they need the proverbial egg in their face.
Yeah.
They need to, what I'm saying? That
Right.
type of behavior. They need to be, what I'm saying? Like there's a presence around where it's very hostile towards you violating our rights.
Right.
And they need to let it know that they're not going to have a comfortable existence after that. And again, and I say this again, not violence. I'm not advocating violence. I'm saying we need to use every avenue we can to put pressure on people when they do things like that. But first and foremost, we need to start exercising and prioritizing intelligence gathering within the bounds of the law, of course, to know when it's coming down the pipeline and doing what we can to head it off or get them to stop their campaign of disenfranchising us as much as possible. And that's where our mindset needs to head to. We have to cut this shit off before it
Right.
starts. And it's not that hard. We've got to know who these people are. It's just that I lack education on the process of how this stuff works. But cut it off.
Right.
Go ahead, Black. My bad.
No, you're good, Sean. I mean, I agree with you. And listen, nobody's advocating violence. We said it once, we'll say it twice, and hey, we're not advocating violence. We're having a conversation until y'all come up with another law to block that. We're sure you're thinking about it. So that's where that is. Muffet, you had your hand up, and then Black. What, Black, go ahead, because I know you were in traffic. So let's get you while you got a good connection. What's up, Black?
Okay, I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So I looked at the Alabama thing because you mentioned it as well. So that has been going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. They finally, it appears, have gotten two districts. Now here's something that is amazing. It's called BVAP, Black Voting Age Population. That is phenomenal. So the one district has 52% Black voting age population. The other one has 49% Black voting age population. That is the label that they need to attach to all of these people. Because that is not raw population numbers. That's voting numbers.
You kind of went a little Matrix, Black. But I got it, and I put this in the chat. BVAP, Black voting age population. We need to find out more about that. Muffet, you got your hand up. What's up, sir?
Yeah, I came in a little late. I just wanted to ask if anyone discussed that the Biden administration was invited to help out in the case, probably to provide an amicus brief, and they declined. I can read a specific post that goes into detail about it.
Be happy to have it. I wonder if you're able to post a link, and if you've got that,
Okay.
So pull it up, Muffet, have it handy. Let me do a couple of things real quick. As always, y'all, the YouTube channel is in the Jumbotron. Please subscribe, like, share if you haven't already. I want to read this section 2 about why was the Voting Rights Act enacted. Now, I'm coming from the standpoint of, listen, I didn't know and don't know a lot about the Voting Rights Act. So to hear a lot of people talk about it, there's a lot that I don't know. So I said, I got to get in here and get this together. Got to find this. So let me read this part. Why was the Voting Rights Act enacted? A nonviolent campaign in March 1965 by voting rights marchers in Alabama culminated in a televised, brutal attack by state police on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. The outrage over this incident prompted immediate national action in Congress, spurred by President Lyndon Johnson. The law was a more fulsome response than prior inadequate efforts to assure that states registered citizens and allowed them to vote regardless of race. Despite multiple court orders, including from the Supreme Court, several states created rules that denied or limited opportunities to vote for Black citizens, such as poll taxes and literacy tests. These schemes effectively undermined or eliminated the political power of Black communities, even where they were a majority of the population. Now, majority of the population, but not necessarily a Black majority state-run population. So there's that small nuance in there that provides some saving grace. So, Muffet, if you've got that article handy, come on, chime in. Let's all get educated at the same damn time.
No problem. I posted it in the comments, but I can read it out.
Okay.
Give you 1 second.
All right. Perfect.
All right. It's from W. Burlette Carter. So it's Professor Carter. I don't know her background,
sure,
but she states what the at NAACP LDF fails to point out is that the Biden administration was invited to come into the case and defend the position of the NAACP LDF. It declined. what does that say about voting for Biden? I have not read the documents to know what the NAACP LDF argued or to form an opinion on the case, though it seems an odd outcome given the past allowances of a private right of action. I no longer have faith that the slave descendants should have faith that the NAACP LDF will make the needed arguments or calls. And recent history shows it is like this administration and its allies to torpedo rights of slave descendants or stand by and let them be torpedoed. The theory is that if our rights are narrowed, slave descendants and other non-white minority groups will have nowhere to turn but Democrats. But actually, we do have options. And that's the end of the quote.
Yeah. Okay. So I just read that. And for the benefit of the folks on YouTube, let me share that screen and get that piece up in there because that is so important. Now, you know what? She said a phrase. Now, this is what's so interesting, Muffin. Thank you. This is what's so interesting about that is the fact that the NAACP has, long demonstrated that they don't have our back. And so then to hear this lady on Rachel Maddow giving this vigorous argument, I appreciated what she said. But for her to, to make her statement, but I don't disagree with this professor that the NAACP they watch stuff be torpedoed. They don't typically have our back. They haven't had our back. And it's just been, it's been damn near a joke. Oh boy, I almost want to play this NPR, and I'm probably going to, in a minute, play this part again. But I want to keep reading a little bit more just so that we can all really get on the same page. And shout out to Shrinking Sharon. She said, yes, please exercise your right to vote. Let's see. So, and this is what is really so crazy about it, y'all. That every year, and when is this? Is it in March where they do that fake crossing of the bridge and you had Biden out there, but yet you were invited, as Muffet just read, you were invited to get involved and help prevent this from deteriorating. But you want to hold hands and fake walk across the bridge. You had Kamala Harris holding hands and fake walking across the bridge. Come on. And we sit up here and watch that, and they televise that crap. Let's see. Let me, okay, what are the effects of the Voting Rights Act? The law has been a hugely successful shield against schemes that limit or dilute the voting power of communities with a history of being marginalized. This protection has been especially helpful in processes like redistricting, which has led to the election of hundreds of federal, state, and local candidates of color in states with a history of discrimination. In the years after the Voting Rights Act passage, the disparity in registration rates between white and black voters rates dropped from nearly 30 percentage points in the early 1960s to 8 percentage points just a decade later. Based on this success, the Voting Rights Act was reauthorized multiple times. In 2006, the reauthorization passed both chambers of Congress with wide bipartisan support, passing unanimously in the Senate. Here's the other question. How come every time there's a law that is directed specifically to benefit us, why does it always got to be revisited? Black, your hand is up, baby. Come on. What's T? Jump in. You got it.
Okay. So I'm going to blame Obama. You said that was 2013 when they essentially took the power away.
Let me see.
And what they did was, okay, while you're looking for it, it was the 9 or 11 southern states under the Confederacy. They essentially had to, get approval through the federal government and all these voting issues. And they took it away with a Supreme Court case. Believe it or not, Project 2025 and what the Vivek Ramaswamy has been talking about, reducing the authority of the federal government. This is all really a part of this grand scheme. Like, this is what they want to do. They want to get rid of civil rights. Like, literally, this is really a big portion of them doing that.
Yes.
When the lady said we have options, I would love to have a conversation with her because I hope in her mind, the option isn't running to the Republican Party because that's really not an option because these are the people that are essentially implementing all of this stuff against us. So yeah, that's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Bad.
Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely correct. And Black, listen, thanks for being here because you know so much. I hadn't even read that part, but you already knew it's some 2013 in it. Sean, I see your hand up. Let me read this section right here, and I'm gonna let you chime in if that's okay with you. This small section here, only because Black mentioned 2013. It says, "How has the Supreme Court changed the Voting Rights Act? The Voting Rights Act has been a constant target of conservatives on the Supreme Court since its enactment. While the law has been renewed multiple times, the court's decision in recent years have often worked to limit its application. Of greatest concern is the 2013 case, Shelby County versus Holder, which effectively eliminated the use of pre-clearance. Following the decision, states that no longer had to get federal approval of new voting rules unleashed a wave of policies that made it harder to vote. And Bremen Center research has shown that the racial gap in voter turnout has grown in jurisdictions previously covered by Section 5. And don't forget, I just learned this tonight, so if I sound like a scholar, it happened tonight, but Section 5 was designed to be applied towards states that had previous discriminatory practices towards Black folks, but of course this article says Black and brown, okay? And it all stemmed primarily from this Jim Crow activity. Sean, be manifesting, what's tea?
I just wanted to add, you kind of brushed over, I'm not brushed over, you kind of answered, you asked the question of Black and you answered it in one sentence.
Sure.
And the answer was perfect. But I really want to hear Black elaborate on it more if he has time. So basically, the question is, what would this look like in a Black majority voter state? That's the question, essentially. We all know the answer, but I just want to hear the particulars or whatever you can bring forward, Black, if you're up to it. Also, I'm really upset right now because just thinking about it,
I know,
boils my blood.
I know it.
It really boils my blood.
Oh my God.
And I now understand that as we make our move to go to where we're going in our target state, we're going to have to dedicate a considerable amount of time, intellectual thought, and resources into finding out who these people are that can actually pull this crap where we're trying to go,
Right.
and dealing with it as far as having plans to keep them from pulling this crap. And if they pull this crap, apply pressure. I think we have to really offline in a room together, sit down and really hash it out because I hate being a doomsdayer, being negative. We know, Black knows, he knows we're not gonna. It's not gonna be a cakewalk. It's simple, but it's not gonna be easy. They're gonna, if they try to pull this crap. This is good that we're hearing this now, but my thing is this: these people, we need names, man. That's why I got to start digging in and doing research about where we're going, who these people are that can actually pull this type of stunt to try to block what we're trying to do, and head it off before they even get it started. You know what I mean? It's like, what is that saying? Kill the baby in the crate. Not advocating violence. Don't take that the wrong way. Anybody listen? It's a analogy.
Sure.
You know a threat. Like if you took over a kingdom, you wouldn't let the sons of the king live because that sons of the king come back and take back his throne. So you get rid of that baby to eliminate the threat. So if we have people that can write legislation or change these rules and laws to take our rights, then we need to know who they are and make sure we stay on top of it. And if they try it, we implement anything we can within the bounds of the law to stop them from doing it. And we apply social and public pressure to people from stop them from doing it. If they pull it off, we apply social and public pressure to make sure that their lives is not a cakewalk any longer.
Well, no, thank you for that. And I appreciate that question too about, like what would happen. And I know I said it and it gave me comfort. And, if we were in a Black majority state, this wouldn't be a problem that we'd be addressing. They'd have to redesign the fix because a Black majority state run state wouldn't advocate for this type of disenfranchisement towards us. So that's the benefit there. So with them understanding that, they will mess around and have to try to redesign how they can, put us back in the quandary. That's what the issue is. But, we wake up one morning and boom, things in the country have changed. We don't see it coming. It's never on the, it was never on the ballot. Nobody said nothing. They just decided they was going to change Section 2, change Section 5. Black people show up to work. They get fired for showing up early. Okay. So can the man get any workers' comp now? I mean, that's just the name of the game. What I want to do is run this NPR piece again. I think it's about a good 3 minutes, because that's an extra thorough breakdown. But I think what I want to do is also continue on in this article, because it is giving, I don't know how y'all feel, but I feel like I'm getting a brief little overview on Section 2 and Section 5. So the other piece of this, it says, in the absence of pre-clearance requirements, civil rights groups have needed to rely more on litigation under Section 2 to combat discrimination in the political system, but lawsuits to undo these unfair rules are both costly and take years, during which elections continue. And it's in 2021 ruling in, this is Bronovich versus Democratic National Committee, the Supreme Court made it harder to bring lawsuits under Section 2. Now, that was in 2021. And here we are in 2023. Why is this? And shout out to Shrinkage Sharon in the YouTube streets, tell me how crazy. Yes. Would you say, Sharon said, this is why it's important to vote in every election, local to national. Holla. But why, if this happened in 2021, what is the nuance between that ruling and then what just happened recently? Because it sounds like the same thing. And I don't know if anybody in here can respond to that. Muffet, where are you at, baby? Because it all just seems like a hot bowl of soup that's, disenfranchising Black Americans. Black, any idea, any thought? Can you come off your mic, or are you still in knee-deep traffic?
Yeah, I can speak. So I started hashtagging Judges Rule America, and something close to that about a month or so ago, maybe 2 months, because what you're seeing is that, and I've posted about, there should have never been lifelong federal judge appointments that don't get elected. They don't have any, like they say they can impeach them, but they really can't. I don't think a judge has ever been impeached at the federal level. So it's a really bad system for the country as a whole. And in terms of us as Black majority state, this is the most comprehensive protection that we'll ever have. It really circumvents a lot of these issues, just being a really clear example of why they could not do much of anything. I don't think there's anything they can do, because as the Black majority voting population, we control the state controls the elections. The only issue would come up if we were doing to them what they've done to us. Then they could actually try to flip what they just did today in order to help their people. And that's really the interesting and ironic part of it. When they're the minority, they're going to be begging for all of this legislation,
right?
To work in favor. So.
And thank you for saying that, Black, because I thought about that too. I'm like, so what is it that they expect to happen? Because they are, at some point, they about to be the minority, but yet they're creating, and maybe this must be their way to offset what those upcoming statistics reflect. If they can do all of this, then then it's not a majority rule state, it's now a minority, or they're just going to turn it into a whole damn monarchy or oligarchy or baby sharky. I don't know, but it's whatever it is, they're doing too much. Sean, you got it. And I'm going to go back to this article. You got it, Sean.
That question you had, what are they going to do as a minority? Black outline, transferring all the power over to the judges who leave it to them to be amongst their people to control everything. You know what I mean? That's what they're doing. That's their play.
Wow. Oh my God. And
Let me speak on that right quick.
come on in,
Sorry.
Trouble. Shout out to Trigger Trouble. What's up, girl?
Hey, lady.
Hey.
That's an excellent point, Sean, and especially with the reference to the courts. But that's what I was saying the other day, Black, when I made that post, is that even throughout the courts, with all of this paperwork and legislation and laws being created, you've noticed for years now that they've started using minority in everything. That's because they're getting ready to be the minority. They're getting ready to be the minority that these laws is being created under the guise of us or us so-called minorities, but they're getting ready to be the minority. So they're going to benefit from all of these laws that have the language of minorities in them, which brings me to what I wonder is when, because you said something earlier, Mel, about you was reading something and you was like, you say there's that black and brown again.
Mm-hmm.
At one point in time, when they were creating laws and doing things, they were doing them under the words of American Negro or Negro or whatever.
Yeah.
And I wonder at what point in time did the language switch from Negro to black and brown?
Right.
When did they start doing that? Because that's when the suckery started. That's foolishness started when they started changing the language that way, and that's the game.
Right.
They've been changing the language because when they get their judges set in place, and then they go to court, they can use the fact that the language was set up a particular way so that they can benefit from it.
Yeah.
And they've been doing that for the longest. And the Republicans and the Democrats are both hand in hand on this. They
absolutely.
pretend like they're against each other, but that is the reason why civil rights was never fully codified into law under any president, and that's going back before Barack Obama.
Oh yeah.
It's like, why was it you? And that's something that we as a people have never paid attention to, is that we've always gotten benign neglect and symbolism as a form of payment for our vote. The only payment we've received for our vote has been symbolism, because everything that we need, especially with the Civil Rights Act, has never been codified.
Ever.
So I'm on that, baby.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And you're right. And I'm going to tell you, Dr. Claude Anderson did mention at least in the Power Economics that initially it was they started using the term minority so that they could include everybody. So then when they go out here and appeal to, laws and benefits and advocacy and things of that nature, instead of making it black, they change it to minority. They use that word, and then everybody gets it. And Black Americans still wind up at the bottom, still wind up with half a plate or half a cup or nothing at all. So let me keep on reading here. It says, now, what are the prospects for the Voting Rights Act's future? Despite declining yet another invitation to depart from precedent to erode the law further in the recent case of Allen versus Milligan, the Supreme Court's current majority has been quite clear in its hostility for the present means of combating discrimination in politics and protecting fair representation. However, the court is not the final say on the matter. Congress has specific authority under the 15th Amendment to craft necessary legislation to safeguard the right to vote absent race discrimination. Now, if I were reading this on paper, I'd underline this, because hold on, I got to reread that. But let me finish this paragraph. Accordingly, a new law that adequately protects the right to vote for every citizen is well in order. The record supporting such a law would press the Supreme Court to respect a new and well-grounded congressional response to a present and clear need for federal oversight of our election system. So I'm going to run this back real quick. This said, however, the court is not the final say on the matter. Congress has specific authority under the 15th Amendment to craft necessary legislation to safeguard the right to vote absent race discrimination. Now, anybody in the space Is any of that making sense to y'all? Let me see. However, the court is not the final say on the matter. Congress has specific authority under the 15th Amendment to craft necessary legislation to safeguard the right to vote absent race discrimination. That sounds to me, and y'all correct me, that sounds to me, other than the piece of race discrimination, Congress has specific authority under the 15th Amendment to craft necessary legislation to safeguard their right to vote. This absent race discrimination, I don't know if they're saying aside from that particular issue, for that being the reason, or the right to vote without the concern or the issue of race discrimination. So that's interestingly written, and that's something I have to look in that a little bit further. It says, accordingly, a new law that adequately protects the right to vote for every citizen is well in order. The record supporting such a law would press the Supreme Court to respect a new and well-grounded congressional response to a present and clear need for federal oversight of our election system. So does this yeah, Black, you got your hand up. I'm going to ask you this question before you come up off the mic. Does this mean we need to get on our Congress people's ass and tell them either y'all fix this shit or we ain't voting for you? How do we fix it? Go ahead, Black, you got it. Always love to hear from you.
Yeah, so many fires, man, of water. So as you were speaking, the thing that clicked into my head was the woman that Muffet read, where she's saying, you know, what are these Democrats doing? Why are they not, you know, trying to fight this?
Mm-hmm.
Then it popped into my head is the John Lewis Voting Rights Act that they had been pushing and promoting. And when I looked at that Voting Rights Act, that is an all lives matter voting rights bill. So they already have the legislation. I'm looking at it like they're thinking this will be our opportunity to put it into place. Anytime they start dismantling things and they have this legislation already out there, they can just simply, because they've been selling it as if this is going to shore up the Voting Rights Act,
Right.
but it's really not for us at all. It's for these immigrants coming into the country.
See what I'm saying? They're doing too damn much. Yeah, they're just doing way too much. I don't know, y'all, Black or Sean, Trouble, y'all tell me, should I run this NPR article again? Look, see, I think it's about 4 minutes, but it's such a great article. I mean, it's recorded. I really want to run it one more good time because there's a lot of information. Okay, yeah, y'all give me the hundreds up. Okay, let me go back over here. And y'all in the YouTube streets, y'all let me know if y'all can hear it because I sure don't want to miss out on. So let me hit the play on that. Uh-oh. That ain't it. Hold on, y'all. Come on, give me. Oh, here we go. This is it.
Key path for enforcing the Voting Rights Act. The dispute has to do with who has the right to sue in order to enforce protections in that landmark law. In the end, this lawsuit could end up making it harder to fight racial discrimination in voting. NPR's Hansila Wong has been tracking this case. Hi.
Hi, Juana.
Okay, get us up to speed here. In the past, how has the Voting Rights Act been enforced?
Well, there's been two ways of enforcing protections for people of color under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. Either the Justice Department can sue on behalf of the federal government, or private individuals and groups who do not represent the government can sue.
Okay, and is one way more common than the other way?
Yes, the majority of cases are brought by individuals and groups, not the Justice Department. And that's what happened in this redistricting lawsuit out of Arkansas that this appeals court panel ruled on today. Groups representing Black voters in Arkansas sued. They challenged Arkansas' state legislative map and argued it was drawn in a way that dilutes the collective voting power of Black voters in the state. And a lower court judge said these groups have a strong case, but the judge ultimately threw out the case because the judge said these groups do not have a right to sue.
And why is that? Why did the judge say that?
Well, this judge is U.S. District Judge Lee Rudofsky, was appointed by former President Donald Trump. And Rudofsky said the actual words of Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act do not explicitly say that private individuals can bring lawsuits, and that only the head of the Justice Department, the U.S. Attorney General, who's named in the law, can sue. And, what's remarkable is that until this case, no judges have used this argument to dismiss voting rights cases. And back in 1982, when Congress amended the Voting Rights Act, there were reports from House and Senate committees that said private individuals have the right to sue. And legal scholars I talked to say this has never been a real question before.
Okay, help us understand the implications here. How could all of this make it harder to fight racial discrimination in voting?
If private individuals and groups are not allowed to sue, that means it'll be up to only the Justice Department to enforce Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. And a change in presidential administration could change the level of priority for these types of cases. And, I think we have to remember that Section 2 is one of the few remaining sections of the Voting Rights Act that have survived after a decade of Supreme Court rulings that have weakened other key parts of this landmark law.
That's right. And this ruling out today, it's from a federal appeals court. But I would have to imagine this will not be the final word on this question, right?
It likely won't be. I'm watching to see if attorneys ask the full Eighth Circuit, all the judges, to review today's ruling. And, of course, it's likely that whatever the full Eighth Circuit rules on gets kicked up to the Supreme Court. And, it's really important to also point out that one particular Supreme Court justice a couple years ago mentioned this issue in a paragraph that was tacked onto a major ruling. This is Justice Neil Gorsuch. And many court watchers saw it as a signal that Gorsuch is interested in having the Supreme Court weigh in on this issue.
NPR's Hansi Luong, thank you.
You're very welcome, Juana.
So that part is interesting. Why does Gorsuch want the Supreme Court to weigh in on it? Because does it really matter if the Supreme Court weighs in on it, even if they decide favorably? Because just like anything else that they've done that has benefited us in the long run, they say, oh, well, let it stick for about 2.5 minutes and then we'll revisit this. Sean, you got it. What's up, sweetheart?
Okay, what stuck out to me was that individuals and groups cannot sue.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I believe I heard Black cover this before, but we have state authority. Can our individual state attorney take up and sue? How does that work? See, I'm so ignorant of this stuff. That's why I got to buckle down and start learning more.
Well, that's,
so Black,
yeah.
Can intervention? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. That's a really good question, and you're not alone in needing to learn more. I'm right there with you. But again, and Black will get into it. But if it's a Black majority state, this is not an issue that we're going to have because we're going to make, we're going to be benefiting ourselves, but Black can articulate it, or here comes Muffet, can articulate it better than I can. But
I got a two-part question.
Yes, go ahead. And what's the second part, sir?
First part is, we have a Black majority state, right?
Mm-hmm.
Within the boundaries.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sean, go ahead. I thought somebody was coming up. My bad. Go ahead, Sean. You got it, baby. My bad.
First part is, can our state attorney general sue? 1. 2, can he sue on behalf of people that don't live in our state?
Mm-hmm. Look at
Or
Sean.
she, my bad, not just he or she.
Right. Good question. That's a good question. And he probably can as long as the thing is, I guess the language is tricky because it can only be presented in front of the Justice Department. So that's telling me, is the Justice Department going to be the one to say, oh, I can't, we're not going to hear that from you. Good question. Black, you heard the question on the table. Muffet, you came back up. Either one of y'all chime in and educate us, y'all. Tell us what time it is.
Yeah, that's a master question. And I love the way you're thinking. So again, within the state, we should not have this issue.
Mm-hmm.
The way the country is set up, states cannot technically sue other states. And that is kind of written into the Constitution. Constitution. What I think we would be able to do is use our federal representation to work with the Justice Department in order to bring the same way the Biden administration didn't put in that amicus brief or whatever it is that, they normally would do.
Mm-hmm.
I think our federal representatives would have to work closely with the Justice Department in order to make this thing work. Not saying that it would be a perfect relationship or a perfect situation, because the Republicans are dismantling civil rights. I mean, it's happening right before our eyes. And this is the problem with begging and asking and saying we need federal protections, because it's going to be temporary, and it's likely going to be way less. It's likely to last less than the civil rights have lasted. It's likely to be dismantled within a decade or two, because this is what these people have their hearts set on. This is the way their minds have been operating. If you listen to Rush Limbaugh, and I listened to him 20 years ago, this is all the stuff he was talking about, like literally every single day. And they're finally at the point where they're just going for it. And I think this is, in my opinion, you do the political thing as much as you can, and then at some point you say, you know what, we have to resort to violence.
Come through Bogart. Yeah. Play as long as you can. Just take the candy from the baby. Take the candy from the baby, and then when the baby wises up and be like, "Man, give mama candy," then it's okay. All right, I got you. Muffet, what's tea, sweetheart? Shout out to the new people in the Twitter space. Thanks y'all for pulling up. What's up, Muffet?
Right. Just wanted to say, in response to Sean's question, I believe the ruling means that only the federal government, the Justice Department, can bring a lawsuit to uphold someone's voting rights. The defendant in any given case where someone feels that their rights have been violated would be any particular state, and that individual who feels that who feels that their rights have been violated would have to go to the federal government and petition the Justice Department to bring a case against any particular state that they live in. So I don't believe, as Sean asked, that a state could sue on behalf of someone whose rights have been violated. It would be the state who, in any particular case, violated the rights or is accused of violating the rights of one of its citizens.
Sure.
And that citizen would go to the Justice Department to uphold their rights. I have some clarity on some of the past rulings where please. They begin chipping away at the Voting Rights Act starting in 2013.
Yeah.
There were cases both in 2013 and more recently in 2021. In 2021, the Supreme Court ruled against two provisions. One was a provision that allowed anyone to bring absentee ballots in and turn them over on behalf of, different individuals. So they struck that down. And they also struck down the ability, if someone mistakenly brought in ballots to the wrong district, those ballots could be thrown out. Now, in 2013, this was a major blow to the Voting Rights Act. The Supreme Court struck down the protections where, let me get it exactly.
Sure.
Okay, this was the section on rule changes, where the states, before making any changes to voting rules, would have to go to the federal government to get approval. It was 2013 that the Supreme Court struck down that provision, and it was the excuse used was that if anyone felt that their rights were violated, they can use the provision 2 ruling where they could sue. And so now that was the first step to get that rule struck down, where a state would have to get permission from the federal government to make changes. So now, since that's been struck down, now a court is going further and says you don't need provision 2. So they're slowly chipping that away at each provision in the Voting Rights Act.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Thank you for that, Muffet. And I see we got some new people in the room. Shout out to all y'all, Aunt Lai, Rella. Let me read this section over here just to kind of, in a way, reset the room. Shout out to the YouTube streets. The YouTube channel link is in the Jumbotron. Y'all, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Be sure to like, share, subscribe if you haven't already. Replay gang, leave a comment. You know I want to hear from you. What is the Voting Rights Act of 1965? Regarded as the legislative crown jewel of the Civil Rights era, the Voting Rights Act was enacted as a comprehensive tool meant to undo the political hold of Jim Crow policies in the South and related discriminatory structures nationwide. Congress adopted the law to ensure that states followed the 15th Amendment's guarantee that the right to vote not be denied because of race. The law fundamentally opened political opportunities for Black and Brown communities to participate in all aspects of the political system on an equal basis. And again, in 1965, it wasn't about Black and Brown. It was about Black. It's that revisionist history where they keep throwing all of a sudden this Black and Brown. And okay, so that's just kind of resetting the room a little bit. Rella, you on the stage, girl. What's tea? You got something to share with us, sister?
No, I'm just reading over this information. I was reading the APnews.com as Muppet was speaking. So shout out to the space, to the co-host, and definitely the host. It feels good to just be in a room with you guys, chopping it up.
No doubt.
Looking at this, the 1964 Civil Rights Act, and there were more than just the 1964 Civil Rights Act. And I do agree with Muffet. Reading this, it seems like Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act is they are definitely trying to chip that away. The problem I'm seeing is that we are not, I think, taking action now to say, okay, well, if the Federal Appeals Court is going to rule that the NAACP or other groups and private citizens cannot sue states for violating our rights under federal law, and they're able to go in and make changes, right? Because remember, there had to be a change now in order for them to do this. That means it was not like that before.
Right.
So since they are doing this, we should be able to file a lawsuit or file some sort of grievance where we now are calling for the impeachment of these judges. It's almost like we need to know how to fight fire with fire,
Right,
and understand our ability to fight back.
Right.
And sometimes I think because there's so much going on with everybody, and we have to become the Johnny Cochran. We have to become, the men who were getting ready to go after, the federal government for reparations on a federal level. And that is us digging into case law. And for people who are interested in, case law or what it means to actually try to actually impeach a federal judge, it can be done. It has not been done to the full extent. I think it maybe was done maybe some years ago. I think we found some information. Didn't we, Muffet? Or maybe a while ago, I could have sworn we talked about it, where there was a Supreme Court justice that was brought up for impeachment. So it can be done.
Yes, that was the case with one justice.
And so,
Senator Menendez was actually the deciding vote in that impeachment.
Right. So I think that we just have to talk about taking those steps. And, this goes back to the conversation we had earlier about, taking action. And sometimes it's just, like I said, it's hard to, and I shouldn't say it's hard, it's a challenge, to try to recenter yourself when you're being beaten down, from so many different angles in life. And you're trying to find that focus momentum, from so many different people coming from so many different backgrounds. And I think this was strategic. They have made it so that we are always discombobulated, right? And so if they keep us in destitution, they keep us in depravity. Now if they can strip, they've already, have the culture of trying to strip, economics from us. And now if they deprive us of our, civility, which is, our ability to vote, and that means vote them in and out of office, then we are in trouble.
Well, and ultimately, and this is my own personal opinion, but they've already taken those rights. They've taken our ability to vote. They've taken that from us already, y'all. They've taken it. They've been cheating. We just haven't seen the clear path of it yet. But they've been cheating. They've been robbing us of our vote. They've been doing this damn thing. The thing about, and I did mention that earlier too, Rella, about the fact that Section 2 is supposed to prevent what they just did, which is change the law on a whim. That's what Section 2 is already designed to do. But they've gone ahead, and Muffet kind of made a really good analogy with it. They've moved the goalpost. They've moved the goalpost so that they can go ahead and without pre-clearance, as it were, is a key term there. Without pre-clearance, they've changed the law. So now, fuck a pre-clearance, we just gonna change the rules on you. And it is what it is. Get in where you fit in. Muffet, you got it. And then Sean, we're gonna hear from you.
All right. Thank you. I had one more point, and I apologize if this has already been covered.
That's fine.
I included an article in the comments dealing with Texas. And like when we hear that our voting rights have been restricted, we kind of associate ourselves with it. But the article on Texas brings out a more important point, and it's about power. Because whenever these states try to redistrict or gerrymander and restrict our ability to have representation in different districts based on what our numbers are, people have used Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act to challenge that and to stop lawmakers from unfairly gerrymandering and restricting our ability to have accurate representation in the state level and in the federal level. And they've always used Section 2 as a means to both challenge that abuse by like their majority state legislature, majority white legislature, and they usually win in court. So the people targeting us and trying to reduce our power, they see getting rid of the Voting Rights Act as a means. And it just doesn't mean getting rid of our direct vote, but getting rid of our ability to challenge their use of gerrymandering to restrict our power on a state level.
Right. Well, again, and this all comes back to, again, because Black has brought it up two, three times on various days and spaces that, the situation out there in Alabama, the judge told them, y'all got to go back to the drawing board, rerun that map, so that these Black Americans aren't disenfranchised. They still ain't done it. And if I understand correctly, they said they won't go do it. Okay. So, but then we've got this. And I mean, it's just like a big slap in the face. Like, we ain't going to do what you said, but now what we're going to do is come in here and create and pull back some law, create our own law. And then that law will comply with. Oh Lord. Sean, you got it, sweetheart.
I'm going to start with saying, hey, Real, it's good to see you and hear from you. I'm glad to hear.
Thanks, you too.
Hope you're better. You're doing better. I'm glad to hear Black say what he said. Kind of echoes what I was saying earlier. The fact, listen, man, I'm not playing with these people, and I'm glad that I'm around a group of people that are on the same page as me, and I don't have to say too much. You know what I'm saying? You guys read between the lines. I take our power very seriously, and I'm highly sensitive to any attempt to take our power away. And I go say nothing's off the table as regards to protecting our power, because what that means is, we get to control our own destiny and, protect our people and prosper our people, and nothing's more important than that to me. And I know amongst this group of people, you feel the same. I say this. I take lessons from movies and stuff, and I'm a big nerd, so, I'm going to give y'all the Star Wars thing. When they took down the Death Star, and I'm always talking about, we're always putting out fires, they didn't focus their energy on shooting up the Death Star all willy-nilly. It was just one focal point they concentrated on, and they knew they took that down, they would call it a chain reaction and take care of everything. To me, us gaining political authority in the black majority state, in particular our target state of Delaware, that's that focal point to me. Not the reparations fight or anything else, because I feel like once we get that real political authority, everything else will be a chain reaction. And I don't really have the ability to focus on a lot of things at one time. That's why I kind of numb myself out of it.
Sure.
Like this police brutality case that happened in California, I couldn't even watch it because it's like, you know what? That's just something else to fuel my fire, but I'm not going to let it stop me because I'll sit there and get mad and fume and probably do something stupid. So I just scrolled past it and just put it in my mental Rolodex. Yeah,
Right.
I can't quit because that must come to an end.
Right.
And the only way that can come to an end is when we get real political authority in this damn country. Nothing
Right.
else really matters at this
Right.
point to me. And I know a lot of us in this room are at that same point. And my focus as individuals is getting our people to understand that all these other distractions are nothing compared to us gaining political authority, and the window is closing. If we don't do it, we're done. Not doing.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I see, Black, you got your hand up, and I also see that you. Let me read a couple of these things. Boy, I tell you, Black and Muffet, and oh yeah, y'all some awesome people. Let me read a couple of things that we've got. Muffet put in here. Those protections are the vehicle used by various civil rights groups to challenge political maps for Congress in the state legislature drawn by Texas Republicans in 2021 to account for population growth. Huh. So if I'm understanding you correctly, Muffet, you're saying that some of this is Muffet. I don't know if you, Black, let's hear from you, and then Muffet, I want you to come up off the mic and marry this voter restriction and population growth thing together for me. Help us understand that. What's up, Black?
Okay, I'm just coming up to update on the Alabama. So
Yeah.
that the article that I found where they, remember I talked about that BVAP.
Right.
Well, this is in this article, and this article came out November the 12th. So somewhere between the November the 12th and the last time that Alabama refused to implement this district, it appears that they have actually implemented the second district. So it's about these 21 candidates that are vying for, candidacy in either one or both, but I think it's just one of those districts. So that's the update, is that they finally, after going back and forth, fully capitulated.
Okay. Yeah, I see that. The race to fill Alabama's new second congressional district will be a crowded one. At least 21 candidates, 13 Democrats and 8 Republicans, had entered the race by the time qualifying ended at 5 p.m. on Friday. And you know what that makes me think too, Black, is did they willfully hold out until they could get who they wanted to squeeze in this thing? You know? Yeah, they held that out till they could get their little game plan, get there. Okay, it's set and ready to go. Now we'll comply because now they've already set the trap. Lord have mercy. Go ahead, Raleigh. You got it, sweetheart.
Yes, as I'm reading the AP News article, so it talks about Arkansas. It talks about also not just Arkansas, that it actually has several lawsuits. It says Monday's ruling applies only to the federal courts covered by the 8th Circuit, which includes Arkansas, Iowa, Minnesota, Missouri, Nebraska, North Dakota, and South Dakota. Meanwhile, several pending lawsuits by private groups challenge various political maps drawn by legislators across the country. And this is the reason why I keep saying that you cannot be a party thumper, because the people that are actually who were holding up these redistricting, they were Republicans. And also it names not just the Republicans, but it also names that in the Voting Rights Act case, that they're not just looking at Section 2, but 4 and 5. And so when you actually start to go down this entire article, Louisiana is also named in this. They have a case, and it says that the Congress. Remember,
Uh-oh, Rella, you went Matrix, baby. Rella, you went Matrix. Hold on. Rella, go down and come back up. There is, because I was hoping she was going to get to this. I was trying to find, because I got so many windows open on this browser, I was trying to find there's a set amount of states that fall under Section 5, and it sounded like Rella was reading those. So Section 5 was designed to ensure that voting changes in covered jurisdictions could not be used until a favorable determination had been obtained. Says the requirement was enacted in 1965 as a temporary legislation to expire in 5 years and applicable only to certain states. And of course, they came up with some type of nickel and dime ass formula. Hold on just a minute. Let me click this and see if this is going to give me. Okay, jurisdictions previously covered by Section 5, and it is showing. Okay, states covered as a whole: Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, South Carolina, Texas, Virginia. Let me see what this graph is. I wish I could put this in the. All right. So for Alabama, this section it went in under Section 5. And again, Section 5 was ultimately designed. Shout out to Lysandra Gilligan, the YouTube streets. Section 5 was initially designed to give that extra added protection in states that were previously known for discriminatory practices. So for Alabama, it went into effect in 1964, Alaska 1972, Arizona 70.
I did not know what happened.
Okay, let me read these states and I'm going to let you finish your point. Georgia 64, Louisiana 64, Mississippi 64, South Carolina 64, Texas 1972, Virginia 1964. And then covered counties and states not covered as a whole, which, I mean, anyway, go ahead, Raleigh. You got it, sweetheart. Finish your point, sweetheart.
No. I was just I think you were almost getting right there, and I was just pretty much to the point of saying, so if we can't get representation in Congress because we know that the Supreme Court or these higher courts are going to rule against, they're pretty much they're getting ready to try to fully strip us from all access to American rights. And this is where, the challenge has to be, we have to be able to come back at them and say, you know what, you are violating, this is not just a violation of our rights as citizens, this is a violation of due process as the United States government operates in a certain way, and they're even going against the process of government. And impeachment should follow.
Yeah.
There should be calls for impeachment. They don't like to hear that word. That's like being on the job saying somebody's harassing you. They don't like to hear that word.
Mm-hmm. Here's my question to you, Rella, and really to the room, but mostly to you, Rella, because you hit on this. Why isn't the NAACP, like the lady we heard from on this recordings, why aren't they saying, if that's how y'all gonna do it, then this is why are they playing like they're stymied as well? Why? How come we're all up in the space and we know what the next plan of action should be? NAACP, why aren't they on it already?
I think it's because it doesn't impact everybody. I think it only impacts Black Americans, specifically, I think, descendant community. And if this had more of a burden on everybody versus just Black voters, then you would hear more of an uproar of an all, inclusive situation. But because it only impacts Black Americans, I do believe that you're not going to hear people who aren't being skirted under this. So, when you hear that POC talk, you're not hearing that Black and brown talk when you're talking about this Section 2 in the Voting Rights Act, because the Voting Rights Act only came about because of civil rights and our ancestors fighting for it. So other groups are not going to be out here like, oh no, let's let's stand in
The gap.
let's take a bullet. Let's
Mhm.
take a bullet for this group
Right.
because this is the impact to them.
Well,
You know.
and then on top of that, Rella, we got Michael Rappaport, who's been rapping a whole lot of trash lately. We have the one white lady, I can't remember her name, that was talking about the Jews are the ones that pressed for the civil rights for Black Americans. Where y'all at now? Where you at, Rappaport? Where y'all at? That's a rhetorical question because we know where they at, where they always been. Nowhere helping us. Okay? Trouble, you got your hand up. I'm going to go ahead and spit the tea, and then I want to reread this deal that Muffet had put in the comments, but you got it, Trouble.
Yeah, just bouncing off of what Rella was saying, I also believe that all of these other groups are allowed to go under the cloak of whiteness, and we are the only group who is not. I haven't looked into it, but I know a while back, several months back, Dawn had posted something online about the NAACP changing their bylaws. I believe in 2017 or one of those dates. One of those years, they changed their bylaws where they wasn't specifically advocating for the descendants anymore, and they had changed their bylaws to represent diversity or what we call them people minority or they
BIPOC.
So BIPOC, and so we also got to remember who started the NAACP, who had a hand in that, which, community who's so loudly telling Black Americans we need to speak up for them now. They had a hand in starting the NAACP. They've always had their hand there, and that's another mechanism of control for the descendant communities while looking like you're doing something to help us. So you get to control what it is that, what type of help we receive. And the NAACP has been taking bags from corporations for a long time. And so they're being paid to give us the same benign neglect that we are getting from our elected leaders.
To benignly us, yeah. So here is, I want to reread this post that, shout out again to Muffet for adding it, contributing it, from W. Burlett Carter, Professor W.B. Carter on Twitter. What the NAACP LDF fails to point out is that the Biden admin was invited to come into the case and defend the position of the NAACP LDF. It declined. Biden and them said, no, we got other stuff to do. What does that say about voting for Biden? I have not read the document to know what the NAACP LDF argued or to form an opinion on the case, although it seems an odd outcome given the past allowances of a private right of action. I no longer have faith that slave descendants should have faith that the NAACP LDF will make the needed arguments or calls. And recent history shows it is like this administration and its allies to torpedo rights of slave descendants or to stand by and let them be torpedoed. The theory is that if our rights are narrowed, slave descendants and other non-white minority groups will have nowhere to turn but Democrats. But actually, we do have options. Now, I wish this lady would have further delved, because if she's saying, actually, we do have options, okay, what are they? Because unless she's about to say a Black majority state, I'd like to know what options she's talking about. I mean, what options? What other options do we have? And is there anybody in the Twitter space or on the YouTube streets? I mean, what other options are there?
To a certain degree, I'm kind of glad she didn't put that out there, because I'm starting to question whether or not the Black majority state move needs to be that public, because we always have our saboteurs, and if they really think that that's becoming a big movement amongst us, will they then try to impede that from happening, or start setting laws and things in place now to ensure that even if we do make that a reality, that there's so many roadblocks in our way that they still can control that
right,
doing it. So I kind of wonder about that just a little bit, but
Yeah, no, that is a good concern because I have that concern too. Here's somebody that responded to, because Muffet did respond on here. He goes, "What's your idea of our options?" Somebody else responded and said, "Do you think they declined? Do you think the Biden administration declined to use this to get black voters to vote blue no matter who, or to create voter fear?" And what should be, I mean, what should we be saying to these potential politicians now because of this? Like, because I mean, I feel like this no tangibles, no vote. I think, we have to say, no tangibles, no vote. So here's what we demand as tangibles. I mean, I think we have to stop using that clause, okay, that phrase, and make it a complete sentence to say this is what the hell we want, because we're not voting and these people are having a fucking field day. And I agree with the no tangible, no vote, because either party ain't doing a damn thing for us, but it's not a full sentence. So that's problematic in that respect. Black, you got it, sweetheart. And then you, Sean.
Yeah, so I think Hillary Clinton's the one that is quoted as saying something about never letting some type of tragedy go to waste, essentially. Yes. So they, in my opinion, because they had the opportunity to be involved, I'm going to state it again. I think that John Lewis Act, which is going to give immigrants voting rights under our historical legislation, is the play, because that's the only thing that makes sense. They certainly can paint it as a way to incite and put fear into the population, because they've been doing that the whole time. You know what I mean, with the whole John Lewis thing anyway. They're going to take away this, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. Well, let's let it happen so that then now there is a legitimate reason why we have to implement this thing. And oh, by the way, we're going to slide in everything that we want along with it, which is what they always do anyway, right? So this is not new. People keep saying minority. Well, white women were the minority that they were thinking about in the civil rights legislation. In fact, they weren't even going to pass it without white women being the minority in that legislation. So the immigrants are the new white women in terms of this situation.
Hashtag protect black at all costs. Let me read this piece real quick, Sean, then I'm gonna let you go. So the guy said, do you think they declined on the purpose to get black voters to vote blue no matter who, or to create voter fear? This is what Professor W.B. Carter said. Well, what is the explanation for them not coming in, at least, and saying they agree with the NAACP LDF? What has happened now is that there is a split in the circuits. The issue will probably reach the Supreme Court. If the LDF loses in the courts, it becomes an election issue. Sean, you got it.
Yeah, I actually stepped away, but I heard no time there was no vote, and I wanted to touch on that. You know, I look at us as the leadership class with the elect, because we're, so far as our knowledge, we're the only ones trying to face these situations we have head on. So we owe ourselves a responsibility to be very, 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 very careful how we use words. And I'm not coming at you, Mel. I'm just saying I hear this a lot, but it's more to the conversation than that. It's like a cake. We're only talking about the eggs that we're putting in. No tangible, no vote is cool for short-term strategy, but it's not a long-term solution to a problem. We need to evolve the conversation. Because I've been hearing that phrase for 3 years, and it needs to be buried.
Right.
The conversation needs to evolve to, we're running our own candidates.
Right.
Get done what we need to get done.
Absolutely.
Push the line. That's what needs to evolve. So when we use that, I say that a lot too, those times no vote, and I agree with it. I do, strategically. Use it strategically here and there. But I always try to follow it up with it. Not a long-term solution to this problem we're facing. And we got to start pushing the line. We got to start running our own candidates.
Right.
To write the legislation we need to protect our rights.
Absolutely.
And that's where the conversation has to go. And I'm just saying, we got to clean it up.
Right.
You know, I'm not coming at you, Mel. I know you're on the same page, but it's just a gut check to our people, especially those in this room. when you hear people say that,
Mhm.
even if you can come behind them and kind of add that part of the recipe
Context.
to it too.
Right. No. You know, Sean, I appreciate that because, yeah, and you may have been getting some ice water or something, but that's what I was saying is like, we have got to do something more than this no tangible, no vote, because all that is a phrase and it does not provide. I mean, we're stymieing and stifling ourselves because we're not saying no tangibles, no votes, and here's what we determine as tangibles. Give us this, or you're not getting our vote. I mean, like I said, it's cute, and it rings cute, sounds cute, you know, and it might have been real cute the first year that we, you know, put it into effect. But you know, if you're a multimillionaire, you will do well with the no tangible, no vote, and no matter how the shit turns out, because you got a passport, you're gonna leave the country, okay? But everybody else who's check to check and got kids in school and mortgages and all these other things, and you know, ain't sitting on, you know, millions and millions of dollars, you know, that phrase, it hit different. Okay, shout out to what's my man FBI Maine. It hit different, that no tangible, no vote. So you know, but we have to now. We've got to be more specific, and we've got to be more proactive. I want to read something else that she said, that this professor. Shout out to Muffet again, because you really dropped some tea up in here, Muffet. Let me read this piece right here, and then Rella, we're gonna come back to you. Um, the professor said, then, you know, it becomes an election issue. Then she said, I've seen what I believe to be this strategy by progressives in other cases. Put people in a position in which the targeted group must, progressive thinks, vote for Democrats, whether or not they like them. Alternatively, don't progress Black or female rights if the argument could not also be made by other activist groups. For example, history might be ignored when it could be used to advance the case for women or slave descendants, but not other groups. Now, I don't understand what this lady just said here, and she just threw me off. I have no idea what the hell she just said. So, Rella, if you understood
I was
it,
about to say, I understand. I understand what she's saying. She trying to that's code for we need to be on some Jane Doe type. What's that woman name? What's that?
Harriet Tubman, Jane Pittman.
No.
I don't know.
What's the woman that they tried to use to
Roe
try to
leave
use?
it.
Yes,
Roe.
there you go. There you go, baby.
Who?
Roe versus Wade. They tried to Roe versus Wade
The situation.
to oblivion. That's what she's talking about. She's literally saying, put it into the hands of the Black woman, and that only if other groups can also identify with the same issues that the Black woman is talking about, because our voices carry. We tend to carry and move movements. The problem is that we have to also recognize that as Black women, even with things that do impact us in certain ways, that we can be used against our own community if we are not careful. And I do believe Ida B. Wells picked that up quickly. She picked that up quickly because if you read about a lot of the things that she talked about when she was trying to work with the progressive white women, so-called progressive white women, she realized that they also too still had a safe haven to fall back into their racist behavior. Meaning that they didn't really care whether or not Black women got their issues met, right? Because it was not about securing the rights for all women. It was about, it was about only securing power over other white men. And so I think where that person is trying to lead us yet again is into a situation where we are walking blindly. And if we push back, we can say no and walk and chew gum at the same time.
So let me jump in here. Rella, it's always, I'm telling you, girl, what you're describing is what happened in the suffrage movement. And I can't remember the racist white lady's name. If I Google it, I could probably figure it out. But definitely Sojourner Truth, when they were pressing for women's rights. And I can't remember the white woman's name, just a chief racist. And they got mad at Sojourner and her crew because they was like, well, you guys need to be supporting us suffrage white women. You need to be supporting us so that we can have our voting rights, because it's not fair that the black man has voting rights and we as white women don't. And Sojourner and them was like, well, okay, come back us up. Because while you're fighting specifically for your rights, what about ours? And they were openly racist and did not want to support it. So they couldn't work together. And this is that whole issue with, when we say allyship and we say, I hate to be super duper political, but you talk about other countries and other ethnicities who need, want, or some are clamoring for our support to, support others in their cause. Where the hell are y'all at to back us up for the support we need? Where y'all at? You're not here.
Isn't that what Michael Rappaport was whining about online
exactly.
when he came out and made that ignorant video?
Yes,
that video was so ignorant. I said, what in the who? I guess who is he the spokesperson for all the Ashkenazi?
But you know what though? You know what, Rella? He might have just been coming from a private meeting, because they're having private meetings when all of a sudden we wake up and legislation has changed. Somebody had a meeting. Somebody brought Dunkin' Donuts. Somebody else brought Krispy Kreme. You heard what I said? And somebody brought the coffee. I mean, they're having these meetings, and Rappaport probably was that. But he was mad, of course, because we weren't buying into the propaganda that he was trying to sell to us. So yeah, we did right by him on them Twitter streets to let him know, shut the hell up. But the point is, they are having meetings. They are making decisions. And my question is, can we read the minutes of the meeting that you was at, Rappaport? Because we know y'all are playing something else because you're mad at us. Now, what is that? Sean, you got it, sweetheart.
This falling in what you said, that goes back into us prioritizing and putting a premium on intelligence gathering.
Yes.
This is really offline conversation that we have in private, after the room's been swept and stuff like that. But, but yeah, we got to get our mind frame has to go in that direction. Like, yeah, we want to know the move before you make it. Drop of cure. The saying, a drop of prevention is worth more than a pound of cure. We can prevent these people from doing this bogus stuff they do.
Right.
That's the best course. We can prevent the Dylan Roos of the world from getting to where they got, and the guy that did the Buffalo shooting. Mm-hmm. If we were monitoring these people and made a priority to do that, I'm surprised. I'm not criticizing our people, but after all the stuff we went through in this country, why is that not top of mind? Why is it not a perennial? Why is it not an exception? You know what I mean? Just stumble on my words.
Yeah, why aren't we doing it?
Why are we not obsessed with this?
Yeah.
I'm not saying the majority of it, but why is our leadership class not on this type of time?
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, we are those people. So there you have it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a lot. It's definitely a lot. And, I don't know. I don't know. But at least now I think from this space, we do have a fundamental understanding of Section 2 and Section 5, which is a good thing. If you did just pull up, although this space isn't recorded, the YouTube channel is in full effect. The YouTube channel is in the Jumbotron. Please subscribe, at least go over and hit the like button. But you can catch it from the very beginning to the end. We had some really good contributions in here, and a clearer understanding of what Section 2 is, what Section 5 is. I don't know what the next step is, y'all. I don't know what the next step is, but we got to figure out something. And I'm not really sure what to do. I don't know what our next role is. But what I do want to do, I want to thank everybody for pulling up. That's it. That is the podcast. Be sure to like, share, subscribe. If you haven't already, Replay Gang, leave a comment. I want to hear from you. And until next time, y'all, we will see you when we see you. Welcome to the Only Male Cruz Show, the We Own Your Head podcast. Discussing topics that make you say, how and where can we improve as a society? from a Black American's perspective.
Reparations,
Copyright disclaimer
lineage-based
regarding fair
chattel
use is in full
slavery.
effect. The views and opinions expressed in this show, you guessed it, they're all mine. Catch us live, be ready to speak. This is a call-in show. Be sure to hit the like button, share, subscribe, replay gang, leave a comment. You know I want to hear from you. Let's go to work.